The Israeli forces have been massing on Lebanon's southern border for days, pointing to an ever closer ground incursion. And the defense minister gave one of the clearest hints yet when he visited his troops hours before.
This is your mission. We will employ all that is needed. Your forces, other forces, from the air, from the sea, and also from the land.
Israeli artillery is shelling targets so intensely along the border that UN peacekeepers who we travelled with just a few weeks ago told us they're unable to patrol because of the security situation, although they remain in position. According to US media, Israeli special forces are already inside Lebanon, carrying out reconnaissance raids. And Sky News understands Lebanese army troops are repositioning along the border. That's being read by many that an incursion is pretty much underway. Explosions have been seen in southern Lebanon. And as more Israeli troops were spotted gathering on the border, the IDF declared 3 villages a military zone, another indication troops may be on the move or about to be. In the first Hezbollah speech since the killing of their leader, the militant group signaled they're ready for any ground battle.
We're prepared if the Israelis decide to enter by land. The resistance forces are ready for a ground engagement.
The lead up to this point has been bloody and violent. We watched rescue workers searching for survivors hours earlier at a site where it's hard to believe there once stood 2 multi-story residential blocks, packed full of families, many of them displaced. There've been some remarkable tales of survival. The rescuers took a long and painstaking 4 hours to bring out this man. They've located many of those trapped by their shouts for help despite being buried. This young man, his face bloodied, live streamed his cries for help. "My brother and I are trapped," he's saying. "Please help. I don't know where my mother and father are." He gave an exact location. He and his brother somehow survived. His parents didn't, along with more than 40 others, in the single most deadly Israeli attack so far. That sound is the first apartment block coming down after residents say they heard 3 Israeli airstrikes. You're about to see the adjacent second block collapse. Both were filled with families who'd already fled the bombings further south. The Israeli forces say their attacks are aimed at dismantling Hezbollah's military infrastructure, weaponry and strike capabilities. It's viewed very differently by Lebanese people on the ground. This is a literal massacre, this civil defense rescuer tells us. He spent all night pulling people out, including the young man in the video. "I've never seen anything like it," he goes on. "This is a war crime." For the first time this year, the Israeli forces hit central Beirut rather than its southern suburbs. This is a busy residential and transport intersection. The target, 3 leaders of a Palestinian faction based in Lebanon. The Israeli attacks appear to be widening in scope. The strike in the center of the capital is on top of multiple strikes down south as well as in the east of the country. Among those killed, the IDF said, was Lebanon's Hamas leader, also an employee of the UN refugee agency UNRWA. The number of dead from Israeli attacks in less than a fortnight now looks set to eclipse 34 days of war in 2006. Whatever the intended targets of these airstrikes, they are coming at enormous human cost. And to the Lebanese people across the country, the Israeli tactics and their consequences are making them feel this is rapidly turning into another Gaza. Those pulled out of the collapsed buildings are rare. 19-year-old Zainab somehow survived, but has a broken leg, broken hip and 2 fractures in her shoulders. She doesn't know yet that her father, brother and sister all died.
The Israelis targeting that building only means they want to scare us. They target civilians. But you should know we're not afraid. They can't scare us. And even if they try to kill us and maim us, we'll keep fighting.
The medical staff are frightened too, most afraid to be identified.
We've seen what the Israelis do in Gaza, and now it's our turn. They're not seeing any difference between civilians, medics, or fighters. They're criminals.
Hezbollah said it's responding to these strikes with what it called minimum effort, and it's ready for a long battle, whilst Western countries who are unable to broker an end to this are drawing mounting criticism.
We don't want anyone to get in our war, but all what we want is to stop supplying Israeli arms and Israeli defense forces. And as you see, this is the result. This is the result of the supplies.
Multiple entire families are being killed, 7 members in this one family alone. There's an overwhelming grief in Lebanon right now, as well as a growing humanitarian crisis and the fear that this is going to get even worse. Alex Crawford, Sky News, in Sidon in southern Lebanon.